do, I do for my family. My money goes to my children, not just this barrel, all of it. I'm going to kill Jack and his entire crew. And I'm going to take back what is mine and give it to my children. And then, and only then, am I through.
You know who she is?
She's American.
Okay.
Noreen Gates, the judge.
There's a gal asking to talk to the cop in charge.
She's American. The car came from El Paso. It's ours.
Okay.
Dr. McKee has now examined the brains of 46 former NFL players. 45 had CTE.
We have an enormously high hit rate. That would be extraordinary with any other disease.
Underfoot, the most hazardous material on Earth, is brewing inside a 1 million-gallon double shell tank.
This tank is holding the nastiest of nasty stuff at Hanford.
Mike Geffrey, who works for a Hanford contractor, saw what no one expected. Evidence that tank was leaking.
Danmark fik en ny regering for 2,5 måneder siden. Vi fører ikke borgerlig liberal politik.
En regering fører den politik, der er nødvendig for, at den kan overleve. Tænk over det.
Lars? Svaret er nej. Jeg vil ikke huskes som den statsminister, der bare var vikar for de liberale.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to look for a cure. But if I could teach you how to take care of yourself, how to express yourself, or just get some type of language out of you where you could be able to voice for yourself.
My father thought that the United States would be like paradise. And they understood that once you crossed the Rio Grande River in Texas, that there was food for everyone and there was jobs for everyone, and that the people actually got fat.
I think I've done 5 books on movie history, etc.
Including one called A Story of Film.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. And I wanted, in that book, I wanted to write not about showbiz, not about box office, not even about Oscars, just about innovation in cinema.
Alors je suis quoi? Je suis une sorte de zombie, c'est ça?
Non, tu n'es pas une sorte de zombie.
Alors je suis quoi?
En tout cas, tu n'es pas la première, Camille. C'est déjà arrivé.
Plague! 40 million infected people is a plague! We are in the worst shape we have ever been in.
If she's not dead, we need to find her, find out what she knows.
Are you mad? She's a homicidal maniac.
Yeah, but we need to find out who she is, Sarah. She found us. She's got answers. The only way I'm gonna do that is go back to being a cop.
No way. Impersonating a dead officer, that's like a whole new crime.
The attitude from the Vatican was, we don't turn our priests in. This is our problem. We take care of it. You don't refer to the civil authorities when they're committing felony crimes. Now, I don't know what they would have done if it would have been a slew of murders.
There were 2 huge explosions just seconds apart, right in the area of Marathon Sports. If you're familiar with that, it's right by the finish line here in Boylston, in Copley Square, and people just started running. But it is a horrible situation.
In villages like this across the country, this is a scene that's been repeated thousands of times. Farius is the latest victim of a disease unknown in Haiti 2 years ago, but that's now a leading cause of death in the country.
It is the poorest city in America, and it's considered the most dangerous city in this country.
I always think of Camden as the best visual aid in America to see what has gone wrong and what is going wrong.
Well, it's staggering poverty surrounded by staggering wealth.
Correct.
I don't know how Dr. Pellman lives with himself. There's a whole group of people who relied on his advice, who have degraded lives today.
As bad as it was being raped, what was as bad, if not worse, was to receive professional retaliation in their chosen career merely because they were raped.
This is the reality of the war in Syria. The outside world is arguing about chemical weapons, but conventional weapons have killed more than 100,000 people on all sides of this civil war and kill more every day.
There are a lot of detectives who I admire for their professionalism, for their craft. The drug war created an environment in which none of that was rewarded. A drug arrest does not require anything other than getting out of your radio car and jacking people up against the side of a liquor store. Probable cause? Are you kidding?
Sa lakas ng hangin, ang tubig mula sa dagat na itulak at umabot na hanggang sa loob ng gusali.
Dito na lang.
Kaya ang mga nagtatago doon umakyat na sa ikalawang palapag.
Well, if Walmart doesn't know where its goods are being produced, it's because they choose not to know. This is a company whose success is built first and foremost on the extraordinary level of control they exert over production in their global supply chain.
I truly, truly love the people in my community. It's like, you know, you love your children, you love your family members, but sometimes you see things they do you don't love. And because of the drug abuse, when jobs do come, they're not able to do them.
Will there be attacks against American bases in the Middle East if there's an airstrike?
You should expect everything.
Tell me what you mean by expect everything.
Expect every action.
Including chemical warfare?
If the rebels or the terrorists in this region or any other group have it, it could happen, I don't know.
There was a motion by the defense to overturn the convictions on the grounds of newly discovered evidence. And Morgenthau not only said that the new evidence likely would have led to a different verdict, he said if we knew then what we know now, we wouldn't have indicted these guys.
David Rosen's not letting election rigging go. He's a dog with a bone.
Then we need to be bigger dogs with bigger bones.
When we were trying to take down Hollis, I was so ready to come clean. Let the whole election rigging thing come out. I was ready to do it, but it was going to hurt Hollis.
And now?
The only person it would hurt is Fitz.
And live. He wouldn't survive knowing.
Governor Haslam spent much of the spring insisting there was nothing wrong with keeping his payments to lobbyist and consultant Tom Ingram a secret. But Haslam's private payments are unusual. U.S. Senators Lamar Alexander and Bob Corker also pay Ingram for his advice, but both report those payments to the public.
הוא עושה קודם כל סדר עם האדם שמתחת שליטתו ועם האוכלוסייה שמתחת שליטתו. לא תמיד הסדר והצדק הולכים שלובי זרוע.
These two Baton Rouge power brokers may have violated the law, collecting tens of thousands of campaign dollars illegally.
The fact that they have kind of violated the law calls into question, you know, what's going on in their campaigns.
One out of every 3 ninth grade students failed to graduate in 4 years. That means that if you look to your left and if you look to your right, one of y'all ain't gonna make it.
100 quid says that's the boat they used and those hares belong to Danny Latimer. They're panicking, Miller. Panicking's fantastic. That is exactly what we want. Starting to show themselves. That's a big mistake they've made. That's like oxygen to us. Breathe it in, Miller. We're getting somewhere.
Ham is a food. Was not invented in Africa.
No.
But somehow, we got our hands on the sugar cane.
And our ancestors blackified it.
We blackified it. We took everything and made it like made it better.
Whoa!
Real men treat women with respect.
It's essentially a place where people tell their stories about race and cultural identity in only 6 words.
6 words?
6 words. And it's amazing how much people pack into just 6 words.
The Department of Veterans Affairs has a drug problem. We obtained data that shows a huge increase in the number of prescriptions for highly addictive painkillers given to veterans. In some cases, the VA is prescribing painkillers to known addicts.
Somebody said that we found the most violent school in America or in Chicago or something. We just found a high school that's seen a lot of shootings, and there are others.
If you could conjure up Oscar Hammerstein right now, what would you say to him about your career having sprung from him in so many ways?
I would say, aren't you proud of me?
At the restaurant, we use the cobs that are left over to make a stock with some of the husks.
So what do you use the stock for?
Well, if we were making a corn soup that calls for water, you would use that stock instead of water, and it just elevates the overall corn flavor.
I've always known that I wanted to be on a drum line. I had already, known that I wanted to be a drummer, but like the drum line just looked so cool because the snare drum sounded really awesome and you could really show yourself off and be part of something really, really cool.
All these songs that were created, first on Broadway and later in Hollywood, have really become a part of our collective culture. And it's amazing that this great body of American song was produced by a handful of people, most of them Jewish.
I want
the work to speak for itself, the quality of the work to speak for itself.
Glendon Hill fronts Sandcorp Industries. Sandcorp is deep into natural gas. I don't give a hoot about natural gas, but I have 67 deputy whips and they all need cash to win races. Sandcorp helps me purchase loyalty, and in return, they expect mine. It's degrading, I know, but when the tit's that big, everybody gets in line.
What are we covered? What are we covered? How
it's
are we covered?
good insurance. We get dental.
Dental!
And
I'm going to get a ruby filling and a fang for apples.
A fang.
Yes, a single solitary fang for tricky fruits and bottle caps.
You understand that that's kind of an elective procedure, which means it wouldn't be covered by this insurance.
I'm going to proceed to elect the fang, the president of my mouth.
This is a great country. Every chef I know wants to die here because the food is awesome. And because I think all of us understand that we don't understand anything about Japan.
I heard about this tranny, Massachusetts. State paid for her whole hoo-ha.
I don't need him to pay for the car. I just need him to buy the oil.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the director of the Peabody Awards, Dr. Jeffrey Jones.
Greetings and welcome to the 73rd Annual Peabody Awards. Thank you, Tom and board, for selecting such an outstanding group of winners. As we've just seen, the Peabody Awards celebrate excellence in storytelling in electronic media. If you take nothing else away from this tribute to winners, let it be that these are stories that matter. As human beings, we only understand what we know through story. Even personal experience, things that happen to us every day, need to be narrativized to become meaningful. But because many of us aren't directly experiencing gender oppression in Pakistan, or gun violence in Chicago, or drug incarceration in Baltimore, or the grinding poverty amongst the working poor who clean our buildings, it's all the more important that we attend to well-told stories about these experiences. As citizens, it's imperative that we look for stories with the power to stretch our moral imaginations. Philosopher Martha Nussbaum put it best when she wrote that, quote, "To become world citizens, we must not simply amass knowledge. We must also cultivate a capacity for a sympathetic imagination that will enable us to comprehend the motives and choices of people different from ourselves, seeing them not as alien and other, but as sharing many problems and possibilities with us." And that capacity for a moral imagination is best achieved through story. Indeed, the stories we celebrate today do just that. Many of these stories require us to witness uncomfortable realities that we might just as well ignore or dismiss. Others present us with characters who exhibit cruelties that we suddenly discover we ourselves might be capable of given different circumstances. This is as applicable to a school teacher meth dealer named Walter White as it is to the miscarriage of justice in Central Park, disregard for plagues in our midst, or turning a blind eye to the workers around the globe who make our clothes. Yet there are other stories here that convey the triumph and beauty of the human spirit. They're stories of family and neighborhood, of everyday communion, perseverance in the face of oppression, dignity in living, and of assertion of rights and equality for all citizens. Through all of these stories, we share our hopes and fears. We see possibilities for actions and new paths for discovery. We become better, more caring citizens. That is what the Peabody Awards represent. The award you receive today is a proclamation that your story is one that deserves our attention as citizens because it is socially or culturally significant, politically important, or deeply insightful to the human condition. It is recognition that your story needed telling, that you told it well, and that the world is a better place because you shared it with us. Congratulations to all of you from the University of Georgia on a job well done. This award ceremony also marks a new chapter in the history of the Peabody Awards. We have joined with Pivot TV, part of Participant Media, as our broadcast partner. Pivot is also interested in stories that matter, focusing on entertainment that sparks conversation, inspires change, and illuminates issues through engaging content. For those of you who have participated in this luncheon before, you may notice a few changes this year that reflect the taping of the ceremony for a Peabody special that will air on Pivot on June the 1st. And to use the old broadcast term, please tune in. And now it is my privilege to introduce our Master of Ceremonies, a man who has revolutionized the art of radio storytelling, is the host and creator of This American Life, and winner of 6 Peabody Awards. Please join me in welcoming the incomparable Mr. Ira Glass.
Welcome, everybody, to the 73rd Annual Peabody Awards. I'm Ira Glass. I'm your host. I know many of you have never heard of me. What's great about the Peabodys is that everything that is broadcast on radio and television, original shows made for Netflix, videos on YouTube, they all compete equally. And there's no categories for different kinds of awards. There's no like best drama and best comedy, best documentary. There's none of that. Everything basically gets thrown into a giant mosh pit with like Bryan Cranston and the cast of Breaking Bad over there, and Key and Peele and Comedy Central over there, and Ken Burns and the guys from PBS back there, you know, and they're all competing, and the only criterion for winning is the simplest one out there, and that's excellence. To choose the winners, the judges meet for 12 days. They meet for 12 days in person, and they argue about what is the best of the best, and all decisions, I'm not making this up, have to be unanimous. There are 16 of them, and it has to be unanimous. It is very pure. It's a very idealistic thing that they're about. And so what you're going to see today are shows that invented something new in broadcasting or storytelling, that told stories that nobody told before, that said something that needed to be said, stories made with such fantastic heart and skill that they just stay with you, that they stick with you. The Peabodys were actually created as a kind of Pulitzer Prize for broadcast. In 1938, apparently, broadcasters, and at that time that just meant radio, they went to the Pulitzer people and they asked them to add radio to the many, many categories of things that the Pulitzer gives prizes to. They give prizes to plays and music and poetry, and they were turned down. Can I just say on behalf of like all the broadcast journalists here, they were turned down. The Pulitzer gives out prizes to cartoons. But broadcast journalism will never rise to the high standards of the Pulitzer Prize. So we went elsewhere. We and our people, the broadcasters, we had to find, we went out into the desert. And where we arrived was here, at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. TV was added in the 50s, internet stuff was added after that. Because they started giving out the Peabody in 1941, when you come to the stage to get the awards, and this is corny to say this, but you were in the company of the greatest American broadcasters ever, some of the greatest world broadcasters too. You stand here with David Chase, who reinvented TV drama with Sopranos. You're here with James Brooks, who made the Mary Tyler Moore Show. You stand here with Alex Haley, who did Roots. You stand here with Julia Child and Jimmy Durante and Jack Benny and Groucho Marx and Edward R. Murrow. Despite that long heritage, I think a lot of us in this room have had this experience over the last few weeks where you tell your friends that you won the Peabody and they're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. I'm so happy. What is the Peabody? Like what? like what is that again? The show I work on, This American Life, we won an award this year. My sister has told me that my 7-year-old nephew has been going around telling people proudly that I won the Mr. Peabody Award. He is apparently going to be very disappointed when I don't show up with a little beagle with glasses as the statue. The semi-anonymity of the Peabodys ends this year. As of this year, the Peabodys will be broadcast on television. They're being broadcast on Pivot, which I know it's an award most people haven't heard of, being broadcast on a network most people haven't heard of, but still, it is a start. They'll also be online at takepart.com, of course, tweets, Instagram. Later tonight, be sure to check for drunken selfies on Charlie Rose's Instagram feed. This year, the Peabody honors 46 awards. On the televised version of the event, we're going to be focusing especially on about a dozen of the winners, which we've organized into groups around certain trends that the judges noticed among the winners. If you're watching from home, I say from experience, this is true here in the room, I've been to this ceremony a bunch of times, the best thing about watching the Peabodys is that you learn about some amazing show that you heard of or didn't hear of or you never really saw, you never took, oh, wait, is that what I'm supposed to watch? Or just some show that you just totally missed, you just never even heard of it, that you can then go online and find for yourself. So let's begin. We start with politics, with shows that talk about politics, each in its own way. In Scandal, we witness a vision of a nation's capital that is way more entertaining than the real thing, with this amazing central character played by Kerry Washington. It is insane to say this. I think a lot of people know this. This is the first primetime network TV drama with a black actress as the star since the 1970s. That's crazy. Shonda Rhimes based the series on the experience of a real-life crisis manager, Judy Smith. The reviewer described what's so great about the series this way, quote, popping with colorful villains, vote-rigging conspiracies, waterboarding, montages set to R&B songs, and the best gay couple on television, the series has become a kind of giddy, paranoid fever dream, like 24 crossed with the West Wing lit up in neon pink, with a lot to say about Washington ambition.
I gave the ring back. Told Edison I wouldn't marry him. I'll wait for you, Fitz. For as long as you need.
Oh, that, yeah. I changed my mind about that.
What?
Don't. Wait for me.
Fitz.
I don't know what I was thinking. Screwing your mistress is one thing, but marrying her? That's political suicide, really. I mean, you believe that my presidency is more important than anything else, right? You must. You worked so hard to get me here.
Here to accept the Peabody are co-stars Tony Goldwyn and Jeff Perry.
Thank you. Shonda was unable to be here with everyone here in New York, so she asked us, her trusted president and chief of staff, to accept this award on her behalf.
And since she is Shonda and we live in Shondaland, she wrote something for us to say.
Everyone at Scandal is incredibly honored and grateful, and we thank the Peabody Awards for recognizing that storytelling matters. We pride ourselves on creating a high-stakes political drama that is sometimes absurd and often operatic, but hopefully never more absurd and never more operatic than the cynical, partisan, real-world DC politics that we all deal with every day.
So yeah, there's 70s music and crazy plot twists, lightning-fast dialogue, but mostly there's reality. Mostly there's our storytelling. Mostly there's our take on politics, the power and politics of love, the politics of sex, the politics of race, the politics of power.
We thank you for this award. We take it as an enormous honor. We take it as encouragement. We are grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next Peabody goes to one-on-one with Assad. Charlie Rose does an interview that reveals so much about the Syrian president even though the Syrian president is doing his very best not to reveal much at all.
But now they say, their words, a butcher. Comparisons to the worst dictators ever to walk on the face of the earth, comparing you to them. Using weapons that go beyond warfare. Everything they could say bad about a dictator, they're now saying about you.
First of all, when you have a doctor who cut the leg to prevent the patient from the gangrene, if you have to, we don't call him butcher, we call him a doctor. And I thank him for saving the lives. When you have terrorism, you have war. When you have war, you always have innocent lives that could be the victim of any war.
Here to accept is the host of CBS This Morning, Charlie Rose.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you to the Peabody Board, and also I just want to tell you how much I love this profession that we all are part of, whether it's storytelling or whether it is art or craft or science or whatever it is. And I'm so inspired by the people who I've seen here, people like my friend Tom Brokaw has been an inspiration to me and so many others, to public television, which allowed me to prove that there was a place for a one-hour conversation that is unedited. Thank you. To my colleagues at CBS, especially Jeff Fager, who went with me to Syria, and Paul Needham, merely a couple of years out of college, who had a chance to go with us to Damascus, where we were able to tell a story. The story is not complete. People are dying, and more than 250,000 people in that country have lost their lives. But I am deeply honored to be part of this tradition that we have, and I accept this award on behalf of my colleagues at CBS, my colleagues at PBS, and all the people who believe in telling stories that somehow engage us in the pursuit of truth. Thank you very much.
Hanford's Dirty Secrets is an investigation into probably the nation's most dangerous nuclear dump.
After 42 years in the nuclear field, the last few months have been rough ones for Mike Johnson. In April, King 5 began a series of reports exposing that the company he runs failed miserably in handling a crisis. The first ever leak of a double-shell tank at Hanford. Their mismanagement included ignoring strong evidence the tank was broken and leaking the most dangerous waste at the site for nearly a year.
Really, just a few minutes of your time?
Johnson never answered any of our questions, but he is talking to his employees with this email announcing, out of the blue, that he's retiring.
Accepting the Peabody Award is Chief Investigative Reporter Susanna Frame.
I don't think I did too much for that guy's career, but I want to thank every single Peabody juror. God bless all 16 of you and the University of Georgia. And to my beautiful team behind me, these handsome men, our news director, Mark Ginther, our producer, Russ Walker, and a talented photojournalist, Steve Douglas, and John Vu, who couldn't be here, who's our graphic designer. I also want to thank our new leaders at Gannett. We're now a Gannett company, and they came to support us here today. So thank you to Dave Luigi and your colleagues. And also every single person at King TV. I'm so lucky to work at one of the best local TV stations that still believes in investigative reporting. So we love you, King TV in Seattle. And most importantly, none of this would happen, none of our, the things that we were able to uncover about the mismanagement of something as important as nuclear waste, we couldn't do it without one brave Hanford worker. A worker turned whistleblower. His name is Mike Geffrey. Thank you, Mike Geffrey. In Yakima, Washington, you are an American hero.
In plain sight, Poverty in America is this ambitious and sweeping attempt to document the lives of 46 million Americans. Turns out 1 in 3 Americans between the years 2009 and 2011 fell below the poverty line. So NBC News did story after story on all the NBC News shows.
It wasn't something I expected, that the story of asthma would be yet another tale of the haves and the have-nots. But as I visited apartment after apartment, that was exactly the narrative I saw evolving.
How's he doing?
The difference between rich and poor is especially pronounced in the city's emergency rooms, like here at New York Presbyterian Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital, where rows of kids on nebulizers are an everyday sight. The statistic is stunning. Poor children are up to 15 times more likely to be hospitalized for asthma than their wealthier counterparts.
Here to accept is Mark Lukashevich, Senior Vice President of NBC News Specials.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the University for the award, the tremendous honor you're giving us today. As Ira mentioned, this is a hugely important topic. 1 in 3 Americans at some point fall below the poverty line. It may not look the way it looked a generation ago, but it's still out there and it's still an important story for us to tell. A quick thank you to a few key people. The Ford Foundation and Jonathan Barzilay, who worked with us at the beginning to make this project possible. Our senior producer, Barbara Rabb, who brought her personal passion to this subject and brought this series to life across all the platforms of NBC News. Allison Lynn, one of our star writers at NBCnews.com, who helped put out literally hundreds of stories on all of our platforms and create a rich dialogue in social media around this issue. And of course, Marissa Buchanan, our coordinating senior producer, who keeps this project going even into a second year, which we're tremendously proud of. Whether it's Brian Williams going to Camden, New Jersey, the poorest city in America, or as you saw, Lester Holt talking about the scourge of asthma in substandard housing just a few blocks from here. It's crucially important that these stories continue to be told, and we're tremendously proud that the Peabody Award has come to NBC News to honor that effort. Thank you.
Borgen, if you haven't seen it, is this remarkable TV drama about politics that somehow does the incredibly tricky thing of telling super realistic stories about the way that politics really works while being a totally compelling, engaging, emotional drama.
4, 3, 2, 1 og værsgo.
Her er TV1 Nyheder med en ekstra udsendelse. Danmark har i dag fået sin første kvindelige statsminister. Birgitte Nyborg Christensen præsenterede for kort tid siden Danmarks nye regering bestående af Miljøpartiet, Arbejderpartiet og De Moderate. Gennemsnitsalderen på ministrene er betydeligt lavere end i nogen tidligere regering, og for første gang er halvdelen af ministrene kvinder.
Jamen her er det så. Og tro mig, der er ikke nogen, der har glædet sig mere end mig til at sige, at Danmark har fået en ny regering.
Okay, that clip doesn't exactly do justice to what is so great about the show. Look for it. Accepting the Peabody is writer Adam Price.
Thank you very much. My name is Adam Price. I'm the creator of Borgen. The work on Borgen began over 6 years ago, and if anybody back then had told us that our little Danish series about Danish coalition politics in Danish would ever find a US audience, I would probably have said they belonged in a mental institution. So I hope you can understand our tremendous pride and gratitude that Borgen now, 6 years later, has been sold to over 80 countries and 5 continents, and not only found a US audience, but also now has been honored with this wonderful Peabody Award, for which we are extremely grateful. Over 300 people have been working on Borgen throughout the production years, and this award truly is an acknowledgement of the dedicated work of each and every single one of the cast and crew. Thank you very much to the Peabody Board, or in Danish, tak, mange tak. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The Peabodys have always included special awards for individuals. Today, the Peabody Award is pleased to give one to Tom Brokaw, because he's been such an important and lucid voice explaining the news so well for so long.
People say from my earliest age on, I was a chatterbox, going around town, finding out what was happening, coming home at night at the dinner table, telling people about it, or even stopping strangers on the street to tell them about it. So television at that time for me was a powerful, powerful medium. And the power of television is that it gives us a common place to turn to. And I'm very much aware of our role. I'm constantly thinking, what do they need to know? What is it that I'm not telling them? What can I do to put this in some kind of a context?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Tom Brokaw of NBC News.
Everybody can see the pictures. Let me try to say something about those pictures that will give them added meaning to the viewers.
Good evening, live from the Berlin Wall.
I think that's the biggest challenge that we have.
Here to accept, author, anchor emeritus, special correspondent for NBC News, Tom Brokaw.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's going to be a long afternoon. If there's an oxymoron in American life, it is humble television anchorman. And I'm fully aware of that, but this is a humbling moment for me in so many ways. And I want to thank the Peabody Committee, especially for this great honor. I also want to make a couple of other observations. One is that if you live long enough, these kind of awards come to you, and or you get cancer. Turns out, my friends know that I go for the long run. I ended up doing both, and it's going to work out. Life is going to be okay because I'm in the I'm in the enviable position of being able to get the best treatment in the world, and it's made me much more conscious of what a privilege it is to have the kind of job that I've had and the visibility that I've had. And every day since I got involved in the profession of broadcast journalism and then later writing about it, I've thanked my lucky stars. It's the greatest life in the world, and when you saw the work that goes on there, on that screen, realize what a compact we must have with the people who watch and turn to us for guidance about how to get through their lives. We're living through the most transformative time in the history of journalism. The reach, the speed, the communication, the consolidation. There are a lot of people out there who are simply malicious and they're aggregators, but the core work will continue to be done by all of us. And we must remember that. Just a moment ago, you met Barbara Raab, who pushed hard to get the poverty series on NBC News. I describe her as a pest. She is a lovable pest, and every news organization ought to have one. So I hope we'll all go forth from here and remember that it's not just about 140 characters. It's not just about where you're going to meet for coffee. It's about serving mankind with the information that they need to know to make good decisions about their lives. Thank you all very much.
There's a famous line from President William Howard Taft: "We are imperfect. We cannot expect perfect government." We now turn to stories that try to chronicle the gory details of just how imperfect our government is. So what happens when a governor vows to, quote, run state government like a business? NewsChannel 5, WTCF-TV in Nashville, Tennessee answered that with a series of reports, investigative reports, that found that the outsourcing of government services looked a lot like cronyism. They uncovered no-bid contracts going to the governor's associates. This clip that you're about to see is about a lobbyist, Tom Ingram, who was lobbying the state government on various issues, but also working for the governor as a paid advisor.
Patrick remembers the Ingram Group was always with the coal company in state meetings. He says everyone knew who was behind the firm.
Obviously, you're aware of it. You know that people are able to influence things.
While people knew the relationship, the governor kept what he paid Ingram secret.
How much do you pay him personally? That's a personal, Alex, and I'm paying him personally.
Governor Haslam still has not disclosed how much he paid Ingram out of his own pocket.
Should that be disclosed? Should people know how much you pay him? I'm not certain what difference that would make. I'm paying him personally.
Accepting the Peabody Award is Phil Williams, Chief Investigative Reporter.
how cool is that to follow Tom Brokaw? Thank you so much to the Peabody Board and to the University of Georgia for this honor. We are truly grateful. I was thinking as I was preparing that this, for me, is a bittersweet day because today is the 2nd anniversary of my dad's death. My dad was a simple man who never would have understood paying this much for lunch. But he was all about trying to make the world a better place. And each person up here has a similar story, whether it's being driven by the inspiration of a parent or the encouragement of a spouse or just wanting to make the world a little bit better place for our children. We are driven to do stories that matter. Instead of doing stories about germs or whether products really work, we choose to focus on following the money and showing our viewers how their governments really work. I want to acknowledge those with me, investigative reporter Ben Hall, producer Kevin Wisniewski, photojournalist Brian Staples, and Ian Montgomery. Our news managers who make this possible are here. News Director Sandy Boonstra, Assistant News Director Michelle Bonnet, our General Manager Debbie Turner, our Corporate Lawyer Jennifer Peterson, and the President of Journal Communications, Andre Fernandez. From top to bottom, we're driven to do stories that matter to our communities, stories that make the world just a little bit better. Thank you so much for this honor.
Our next Peabody is presented to a classic old story that is told in a fresh new way. The story? A ruthless, amoral, very charming guy schemes his way to revenge and power, explaining to the audience at every turn, like Richard III, how he is doing what he's doing and how it all works. House of Cards was created by Beau Willimon as a deeply addictive, binge-worthy show with memorable performances by Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright and so many others. Watching it, the performances are so good sometimes you feel like you're seeing like pop culture history being made. Somehow, it already feels normal that we can get all the episodes of a series in one day, like on the internet, the way House of Cards is. It's like that began like yesterday, and now it just seems utterly normal. That innovation means that showrunners don't have to worry about weekly ratings and the possibility of imminent cancellation. They can just make the best show they know how, which is great.
That I will faithfully execute the office.
Power is a lot like real estate. It's all about location, location, location. The closer you are to the source, the higher your property value. Centuries from now, when people watch this footage, who will they see smiling just at the edge of the frame?
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Accepting the Peabody Award is showrunner Beau Willimon.
Thank you. We have some of our lovely cast here. As David Fincher always says, cast well and get the hell out of the way. We'd be nowhere without our cast. Thank you so much to the University of Georgia and to the Peabody Board for this incredible honor. We're in a great debt to Michael Dobbs, who wrote the novels that House of Cards was based on. And of course, we're in a great debt to our studio, MRC, and most importantly, our home, Netflix, a visionary company that has really changed the game. And who you've honored twice today with not only our show, but with the amazing Orange is the New Black. It's so thrilling to share the company of all the people in this room and all their great achievements. We're particularly happy to be sharing company with The Invisible War, a very important documentary which inspired a major storyline in season 2 for us. Real life can often be darker than make-believe, and projects like The Invisible War and so many of the winners in this room shed light on that darkness. Thank you so much. It's a great honor.
Louisiana Purchased was a massive investigation revealing illegal campaign contributions and weak enforcement of ethics laws.
Brian Bozier from Alexandria. A large chunk of his donations came in one day, February 8th, 2012, in 19 different checks. Bozier, 6 of his family members, a business partner, and 11 different companies he owns contributed the maximum $5,000 to Governor Bobby Jindal. All totaled, in one day, Bozier helped direct $95,000 to the governor.
The reason this is effective is because it's hidden. They're using the rules to disguise the influence.
At the Peabody is Lee Zurich, anchor and chief investigative reporter, WVUE-TV.
Thank you. A project like this doesn't happen without commitment and vision. Louisiana Purchase pulled back the curtain on a campaign finance system hidden amongst an almost unlimited amount of data. Our bosses, they were committed. They appreciated and understood the scope of the project and gave us 4 months to do initial research, committing whatever resources were needed. The vision is what makes this project special. We all know the media landscape is changing, and to stay relevant requires making bold moves like this collaboration, which may be the most extensive partnership between a local TV station, 2 websites, and a newspaper. And I think we may be the first partnership like this to win this award, too. Everyone up here knows the significance of the Peabody. A few of the guys standing near me have dreamed about winning that Pulitzer. As Ira hinted, their cartoon didn't win a Pulitzer this year, but they won one of our Pulitzers, the Peabody. On behalf of WVUE, NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, Louisiana Media, Raycom Media, and Advanced Publications, we'd like to thank the University of Georgia and the Peabody Board for recognizing our work.
I believe that it would be good for America if every single person in America saw the house I live in. It is a totally convincing and powerful explanation of what has gone wrong in the war on drugs. Often, part of what makes it so powerful is that often the people doing the explanation and explaining how it's all deeply unjust are the very judges and cops and prison officials who are on the front lines of the war on drugs. Also in this clip, as you'll see, former journalist David Simon.
To go down to a drug corner in the inner city is the rational act of somebody going to work for the only company that exists in a company town. When that is the only economy that's functioning in certain places in this country, what do we expect?
Beyond the structural barriers that promote drug crime on the street, those arrested soon find themselves in a self-perpetuating cycle from which few ever really escape.
People don't realize, for example, that when you arrest a young black man and he goes to jail, the first thing, when he gets out of the prison, he can't get a job in most places because of his record.
Director Eugene Jarecki will accept the Peabody Award.
Thank you very much. I'm joined here by my partner in crime and producer of the film, Melinda Shopson. Our entire team is here, who are all too many to name. They know who they are, and they've done an incredible life's work on this. We continue the fight against the war on drugs and against the injustice that it represents among so many issues in American life. And I, of course, want to make sure I thank PBS, the whole PBS family, Lois Vossen, Sally Jo Pfeiffer. I want to thank everybody at Independent Lens and also at ITVS. And it's very important also to note that foundations help us in this new age where foundations are so crucial to telling these stories and to finding the truth, and the Ford Foundation and the Open Society Institute have been lead among those. I want to, before leaving, just say that my film is about addiction, and what struck me most here today was less being part of a tradition, which is a beautiful thing, of course, because the Peabodys have been here longer and more seriously than any of the other awards that now recognize docs. But much more important is that we're in a new age of speaking truth to and about power. And I think as such, America is like a big kind of fat Elvis, sort of a drunken old shadow of herself in a lot of ways that need mending. And I think a lot of us represent a form of therapy for this country, therapy for ourselves in understanding these issues better, and then sort of sharing the fruits of our own therapy with the country at large. And the big question for a lot of our areas of really crucial survival issues that we face, that so many of these films deal with, and it makes me so proud to be a part of it, is will the country hear itself? Will the country submit to that kind of therapy from which only good can come? So it's a great pleasure pleasure to be here, and I thank everyone for being a part of this New World moment with us. Thank you.
The VA's opiate overload did such a good job documenting a problem that it led to quick congressional action.
We analyzed 12 years of prescription data from the VA, and we found that since the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the agency charged with helping veterans is instead masking their pain with potent drugs and feeding their addictions. Prescriptions for 4 highly addictive painkillers have surged by 270% since the war began, far outpacing the increase in patients. The government's own studies show the fatal overdose rate amongst VA patients is double the national average.
Accepting the Peabody is veterans reporter Ira Glass.
This is such a big award, the Peabody Award, to be in such amazing company tonight. I want to thank the Center for Investigative Reporting, especially my bosses, Mark Katchis and Robert Rosenthal, for putting me on this beat for 2 years and encouraging me to do the maximum amount of damage possible through journalism in the service of our veterans, and understanding that this is one of the most important beats that we face as this war in Iraq and Afghanistan winds down and we move into the future. I want to thank the veterans who opened their souls to me on this piece, and the other journalists who collaborated with me on it, especially 2 producers, Addie Sempamurthy and Michael Montgomery, who worked very closely with me on this piece, and my amazing, amazing editor, Amy Pyle, who's standing behind me, who's with me every step of the way. It's really tremendous. It's also wonderful to win this award on behalf of Reveal, which is a new show that the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX are producing. The very first show to win an award like this is amazing. The first ever national investigative news radio show. Thank you.